I really love Mario Kart, not just because of the chaotic races across the many high quality tracks, but because it allows me to play as so many characters I could have never have imagined to ever play as. Like, it seems basically anyone can get a driver's license at this point. Babies, Goombas, cows, fish bones, but one group seems to be banned from partaking in these exciting events. And that is the elders, the ones who we should respect and honor, and yet Mario seems like he wants no business with this. Literally, the closest we've got is Toadsworth driving the parade cart in Double Dash like a total slave. I guess he was invited to play baseball, but how about all the other elderly citizens across the Mario universe? Like Professor Gadd, he was supposed to be in Mario Kart DS, yet got cut. Why? Because he's too old? That's not very nice, Mario. After everything Gadd did to help Luigi in saving you, that's what he deserves? To show some love to these elderly characters, I'm gonna go through every single one of them. And this might in fact show that they had been properly represented in certain games. I may have just been so stuck up on their absence in Mario Kart I never seemed to notice. Now, the three characters which will likely first come to your mind are Toadsworth, Professor Gadd, and Cranky Kong. Yeah, this is kinda strange since Cranky Kong is primarily a DK character, Gadd is known for the Luigi's Mansion games, and Toadsworth is probably dead at this point. He hasn't appeared in anything for so long, except for the 1000 Year Door remake, but what were they gonna do? Change him with another Toad wearing glasses? No, but that is exactly what happened in the Mario movie. Luckily, Cranky Kong actually played a significant role there, and was seen driving a cart. But alas, he has to wait for a personal invitation by Mario for any of his racing events. Now I'm guessing you guys know those three characters pretty well, but just in case, here's a brief summary. Toadsworth was first introduced in Mario Sunshine and is responsible for taking care of Princess Peach. Professor Gadd debuted in the original Luigi's Mansion. He's a scientist who researches ghosts and has produced many inventions. The E stands for Elven. And finally, Cranky Kong. That's the original Donkey Kong you face in the 1981 arcade game. And now he resides in Donkey Kong Island with all the other Kongs. He loves to complain, and his dialogue often breaks the fourth wall. So researching for this video, I was hoping for the lazy way out, where all these elderly characters would just be on one Mario Wiki page and that'll be it. But that of course wasn't the case. There was one Mario Wiki page with 13 elderly characters listed, I guess. They forgot Gadd though, but that's fine, we know who Gadd is. And I gotta give a ton of credit to the Mario Wiki page, cause for each individual character, which was like super obscure, I didn't know much information about them, of course, but the Mario Wiki page had me covered. Excluding Cranky Kong and Toadsworth since we already mentioned them, the characters listed on the wiki page are as follows. We got Grandma Red and Grandma Green from Mario and Luigi Partners in Time, who are the only Toads that survived the Shub invasion in the past version of Toad Town. Very impressive. Next is Grammy and Grampy from Mario Golf Advance Tour. The cuckoo course they own sounds amazing, and so does the cottage they live in. Hopefully I can meet them one day in that cottage. From the original Paper Mario resides the giver of star pieces and single coins, Koopa Koot, a character who all Paper Mario completionists must be very familiar with. Another elderly Koopa is Koopa Craig from Mario Party DS, whose status is alive. Cool. Koopa Craig's grandson also happens to be a Koopa Trooper. Koopa Craig has only one enemy, Kamek. This is because Kamek used one of his books to trap poor Koopa Craig. Now, in quick succession, the 5P characters include the Park Director and Pianta Judge from Mario Sunshine, Panguru and Polari from Mario Galaxy, and Pops, the Mayor of Luxville in WarioWare Gold. Pops is a part of the human species. And finally, we have Wrinkly Kong, the beloved wife of Cranky Kong who unfortunately passed away between the events of Donkey Kong Country 3 and DK64. Actually, her last game was Donkey Kong Land 3, where she is seen to suffer from dementia. By the way, aside from the characters we just listed, I won't be mentioning any elderly characters from the Wario or DK franchises. Wrinkly Kong just felt pretty significant, and Pops was a part of the human species, I guess. Who knows at this point. Anyways, shoutouts to Master Mantis from WarioWare cause he's pretty cool. And now I should mention the criteria to what makes a character elderly, since several characters we're going to discuss have never been stated to be elderly. But there's no way someone like the Holly Jolly Mayor is excluded from this list just because he's never been referred to as an elder. So to determine if a character is elderly, We'll also look at the physical signs of aging. This can be indicated through grey hair, beards, moustaches, or any wrinkles. Also, keep in mind that ghosts or other forms of dead characters don't count, unless if they also happen to look old as well. There's also a lot of characters who are 1,000 years old or very ancient, and yeah, that's really old and all, but they don't look elderly at all, so we're not going to count those either. Despite everything I said, I'm sure we'll find some exceptions to these rules, and of course, spoilers to literally every game I'm going to talk about in this video. Anyways, let's go game by game to shed light on the various elderly characters the Mario franchise offers. First is the 2D Mario franchise, which across all of its games, only Mario 3 seems to include any elderly characters. That being the kings from each of the 7 lands in which each Koopaling transforms one king into a different creature. But out of these, only the kings from the desert, sky and pipelands are clearly elderly citizens. The rest seem to be at most middle age, one even looking like Mario's age because he's literally Mario's doppelganger. By the way, I'm basing these kings off their Mario All-Stars / Mario Advance 4 models rather than their ones from the original game, since these are more detailed and a bit more recent designs. Now moving on to the 3D Mario games, there's not too many elderly characters here, but still more than the 2D games, that's for sure. In Super Mario 64, we have King Bob-omb. Yeah, so this guy was in Mario Kart Tour. So that kind of ruins that whole bold claim I made how elderly characters are banned from Mario Kart, so maybe I shouldn't have said anything about that in retrospect. Anyways, King Bob-omb is of course the first boss you face in this game in Bob-omb Battlefield, and he also appears as a boss in Mario Kart DS, albeit he isn't driving in this game. The reason why I did include him is, even though he doesn't give me elderly vibes necessarily, he literally has that massive grey moustache looking like he's the father of the Pringle Man or something. That's why I had to put him here. Another boss in this game also happens to be in Mario Kart DS as a boss as well, and that is I-Rock, who lurks within the depths of Shifting Sandland. It's as if Mario Kart DS got all of its bosses from Mario 64 DS. See, I-Rock is pretty ancient, but he doesn't look elderly. Although there is a similar boss who I'll shortly discuss in Mario Odyssey, which made me ultimately include I-Rock in our list. Now the last elderly character in Mario 64 is only in the DS version of this game, and also originated in the first Paper Mario game, that being Goomboss, the king of the Goombas, because every iconic enemy species just needs to have a king at this point. But this guy seems like he means business. Out of everyone Bowser could choose, he gives Goomboss the responsibility to safeguard the key to Mario's door. Alright, let's step outside the Mushroom Kingdom and head to Isle Delfino to spend some quality time with the elderly folks around here. I've already mentioned the park director and Pianta judge, as well as Toadsworth, where this is the first game he ever appeared in. This also happens to be the first game the Noki Elder ever appeared in, but no one makes a big deal about that. Come on guys, show some love to the Noki Elder. Please! We also have the hotel manager of Hotel Delfino in Serena Beach, and the captain who is in charge of all the sailors and workers at Rico Harbor. Now, for the Galaxy games, I've already mentioned Polari and Penguru, Penguru being in both games. I remember feeling super smart when I found him when riding Yoshi at the tippity top of Hightail Falls in that one section. So besides these guys, all that remains is Guillermo, yeah, that's how you say it, I think. Specifically, the one from Battle Rock Galaxy during the Purple Coin mission. If you happen to collect an impressive total of 0 purple coins, the Guillermo discloses itself to be an old lady. Huh, what a pleasant reward. We can't say for sure if the other Guillermos are elderly, but this one certainly is. And unfortunately, no elderly characters reside in Mario 3D Land nor Mario 3D World. So let's just move on to Odyssey, where I'm not quite certain if Madame Brood is in fact elderly. She might just be middle-aged, so I won't count it to be on the safe side. You know what? No. The man I had to sacrifice to admit King Bob-omb is elderly. Madame Brood, you're getting in here as well. I'll also be counting the Shiverian Elder because his name includes the word elder in it. That makes me wonder, is his legal name the Shiverian Elder? Like, imagine being called an elder since you got out of your mother's womb. That's pretty sad. I don't know, maybe he digs it, who knows. We also have Nucleotech, the guardian deity which resides in the underground temple in the Sand Kingdom. This was the boss which shares some similarities to iRock. Just instead of punching it in the eye, we capture its hand to give Nucleotech a supreme knuckle sandwich. Yum. Alright, it's time for me to eat up my words because Mario games, I said, don't represent the elderly much. But these Mario RPG games, they love elderly characters. Especially the first 3 Paper Mario games. Researching those were rough. We'll get to those shortly. Also, spoiler warning again because the final bosses in these RPG games also do tend to be elderly characters. So of course, I'm going to talk about them. Starting off with Mario RPG, we have the main antagonist and final boss of the game, Smithy, who ironically looks a lot like Santa Claus. Hey, even the wiki says it. Guess the evil Santa in Futurama wasn't the first of its kind. Smithy's goal is to get rid of people's wishes from being granted and replace them for a world filled with weapons. Interestingly, in the final battle, there are a lot of heads of Smithy in the background of the arena, suggesting Smithy was initially planned to be mass-produced. But now I'm wondering, who mass-produced these unused Smithies? Smithy himself or a higher figure we never got to see? Other elderly characters which inhabit this game include Frogfucius, whose name got nerfed in the remake to Frog Sage. That's because they want the name to closely represent the Japanese name, but Frogfucius just sounds more epic. There's also Grand Mart Toadstool, not to be confused with Gram Mart Toadstool from the Super Mario Bros. Super Show.
That's me! I'm Grandmother Toadstool!
Or the wiki just calls the Mario RPG one Granny because that's what she's called in the remake, so we don't get all confuzzled. The wiki states she is a minor mushroom character. Grandma Toadstool also doesn't really want Mario to use Peach's bed. Except for Peach, Grandma Toadstool is the only one aware of Peach's question mark. Something which she has been so trustworthy of that not even us players have found out what it is till this very day. Then there's the Elder of Seaside Town, and the Chancellor, who basically is Princess Peach's advisor. Doesn't that sound familiar? Finally, Exor, that massive sword you see throughout the entire game, which you eventually get to beat the crap out of. The monster list profile for Exor's right eye states, "My vision is 2200, add astigmatism to that and throw in the fact that I'm getting older and need reading glasses, and I'm struggling to even write this text." Patients who need reading glasses are aged somewhere between 40 to 65 years old, and since an elder is considered to be at least 65 approximately, there is a 1 in 25 or 4% chance that Exor is indeed elderly. But a 4% chance is not enough to count Exor. Between this and the fact that he's the only boss you can one-shot using Geno World, I feel pretty bad for this guy. Alright, it's time to lock in. There are 19 elderly Mario characters in the original Paper Mario we have to go through. We've already discussed Koopa Koot and Goomboss. Who we haven't discussed is the village leader. Now, we've never seen an elderly Yoshi before, but I'm guessing that's what the village leader is trying to convey, considering its more laid back and tired vibes. Sure, he doesn't have a grey beard, but Yoshis can't even grow facial hair in the first place. Sticking to said Yoshi theme, we have Kamek Koopa. I'd like to think this is the Kamek from Yoshi's Island, who till this day is stuck by Bowser's side, particularly as Kamek acts as a secondary antagonist in the game. But that doesn't really make sense, because unlike Kamek is a dude, and second, Kamek looks the same when Bowser's all grown up, seen in the Mario and Luigi games and modern Paper Mario titles. In addition to that, I also thought Kamek Koopa was that one boss you face in Mario Galaxy, but in fact that boss is a Magic Koopa called Camella. Next up, a character who did appear outside of Paper Mario, Elster, the leader of the 7 Star Spirits and the first one you rescue after defeating the Koopa Bros in Chapter 1's Fortress. All these Star Spirits return as the host of Mario Party 5, and Elster serves as the guide for party mode. Rapid firing through some larger than life characters, we got the Club 64 bartender, Postmaster, Oakley, the very overpowered Dojo Master, Goomba and Goompa, the grandparents of Goombario, the latter being a character who can become your partner through fun glitches, and there's the Toad Minister, who pretty much serves a role as the Chancellor in Mario RPG. And of course, Toadsworth is pretty much just these guys, but the definitive version. Moving on to the Pingu characters in Chapter 7's Shiver City, there is the Mayor Penguin. This is the guy who Mario finds lying on the floor, probably dead. The mayor's wife enters the room, sees a dead husband, and Mario is next to him. Oopsie daisy, you're now a murderer. This penguin patrol guy pops in and is supposed to arrest Mario, but after hearing our plead for innocence allows us to find the true killer. To clear Mario's name, we find Herringway, take him to Mayor Penguin's house where the mayor suddenly returns back to his alive state, because he wasn't dead and just unconscious this whole time, because he got knocked out when trying to get a gift for Herringway. Anyways, I'll be including the Mayor Penguin, his wife, and Herringway, assuming the wife is about the same age as the mayor. Tasty is the cook of Toad Town who can hand one or even later in the game 2 items which she'll cook to create a dish that is usually better than the item you gave to her, unless you put some weird ingredients and then you end up getting a mistake. By the way, in the Thousand Year Door, there's a character called Wonky, who for 5 coins gives you various information, most interestingly, a lot of cool lore. One story involves Zesty, who has the same role as Tasty in the Thousand Year Door. Zesty apparently has a sister who married and moved away a long time ago. This implies the sister is Tasty, but Tasty doesn't have a husband, in the game at least. The wiki states that the only other elder in Toad Town is the Toad Minister, and it doesn't seem like he's with Tasty. So Tasty's husband must have passed away before the events of Paper Mario. And that does make sense, but what doesn't is there only being 2 elders in Toad Town. Because I've already counted the Club 64 bartender, who even the fandom Mario wiki agrees is an older looking Toad. Maybe the fandom page is wrong, but the Dojo Master, you can't argue that, he is definitely an elder of Toad Town, and happens to also be Tasty's brother. Well, guess that means he can't be the husband. And let's not forget about the Master Poet in Toad Town, and hence the Toad in the Desert who has the same exact design. See, the Master Poet is in love with the pop diva, who is not perceived as elderly. This could be a Mayor Penguin and his wife incident, but I don't know, maybe the Master Poet may just like him young. The Master Poet's grey hair does seem to be a wig from the Enlightenment era, however there's no way you can explain that grey moustache of his. Let's talk about Bootler now, the butler of Lady Bo, who's depicted to be quite overprotected of her, giving that synergy between Princess Peach and Toadsworth. I thought that was pretty smart of me thinking that, but the wiki literally mentions that in the next sentence. So Bootler happened to be in love with Lady Bo's grandmother, who used to be the Boo's mansion's mistress when Bo was a little child. Both Bootler and Bo make a small cameo in the Thousand Year Door as well, appearing in Partially Heights after you defeat the final boss. The final group of characters we must go through, well, I guess we don't have to, but that's kind of rude. Anyways, these are the Mer characters, specifically Merlin, Merle, and Melumina shall be counted as elders. These Mer characters are known as a shaman species. Out of all the shaman characters, Merle is the father of Melovely, Merlo, and Merly. Merlo is the younger brother of Melovely and Merly, where Luxley is the older sister. Despite not looking elderly, Melumina is the ancestor of Merlin, so she counts. In the Thousand Year Door, Melovely is revealed to be 25 years old. Since Merlin has a granddaughter who is 25, he's gonna count, evident by his white beard as well. And there's a good chance his son Merle is elderly too, plus he has a white Pringle mustache. Aside from Merle and Merlo, the rest of these characters reappear in both the Thousand Year Door and Super Paper Mario, except for Melumina, who is not in the Thousand Year Door. Okay, time for some fun facts! Yay! Goomba, Koopa, and Bootler were like some triple threat of the Mushroom Kingdom. They travelled across the world where Goomba even sparred with the Dojo Master, teaching him how to fight. You know, the one who has 99 HP? Goomba is literally the Mr. Miyagi of the Mario universe. No wonder why he's the one who teaches Mario how the battle system works in the first place. So, I think we know why Goomba never accompanied Mario on his adventure. Because he could one-tap every enemy you encountered. He's way too strong. The anti-guys, they would run in fear if they ever came toe-to-toe with Goomba. Also, his wife Gooma taught Tasty how to cook. You know, one of the best cooks in the Mushroom Kingdom. Trading Event Toad looks like Toadette before Toadette even existed. And if you tattle a toad called Mr. E, who is a part of the dry-eyed toad species, Goombaria mentions it's hard to tell whether he's old or young because of the cloth that's wrapped around his face. What do you think, young or old? I'm betting young. Okay Goombaria, I'll trust you this time. Okay, now time for Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. Once again, a lot to go through. We've already mentioned Wonky, who resides in Rogueport sewers, and we've mentioned Zesty, who is similar to Tasty, However, instead of her personality being super sweet, it is super sour. Also, the fact that Mario stomped on her contact lenses doesn't help her attitude either. Zesty's age is actually confirmed to be 55 years old, which is kind of annoying cause elderly citizens are typically over 65. But you know what, it's close enough. Just don't tell Zesty I said that. Another Toad who you really shouldn't get on their bad side is Ghosty, a deceased Toad who had passed away in cabin 004 in the XS Express and still resides there. By the way, the word for in Chinese and Japanese sounds similar to the word used for death, which is why that's the number of the cabin. Anyways, speaking of death, Ghosty can kill Mario. This can happen since Ghosty wants us to obtain its diary, which we are not supposed to read. If you do, well, game over. Then there's Grifty, that one mouse who's always chilling on a roof in East Rogueport. Like Wonky, Grifty here tells us some deep lore, specifically about the legend of the 4 heroes. A Toad, Goomba, Koopa and Boo, who match their strengths with the power of the crystal stars, and they successfully seal the demon's soul within the deepest part of the palace. The palace here is referring to Chapter 8's Palace of Shadow, which is accessed after obtaining all 7 crystal stars, and the demon is the game's final boss, the Shadow Queen. Mario's adventure takes place 1000 years after this event, hence the game's title, where you actually encounter all these 4 heroes. Grifty mentions the 4 heroes thought they had sealed the demon and all of its powers, but the demon used a tiny opening before the seal was complete to curse them all. So before the Shadow Queen was sealed away for 1000 years, she cursed these 4 heroes where once each hero let go of a crystal star, they would turn back into a black chest. And yep, these are the same 4 black chest demons who so-called curse Mario, which in reality grant him a unique ability which helps you access locations you couldn't otherwise. But why do these heroes act evil when you talk to them? Perhaps the curse had stripped them of said identity which made them heroic, or being stuck in a chest for 1000 years had driven them insane. But then again, the pixels in Super Paper Mario face a similar state and are perfectly fine. Or the heroes were helping you out, but in a way that no one would think that they are being helpful. I did go pretty off topic there, but I don't think I'll ever get to talk about the 4 heroes again. You seal Shadow Queen away, sure, but after 1000 years, a servant of the Shadow Queen, Beldum, another elderly character in this game, manipulates the X-Nauts to kidnap Peach. Beldum is actually the merchant who sells the treasure chest to Peach at the start of the game. The leader of the X-Nauts is Grotus, the main antagonist, who kidnaps Peach, and another character who will count as elderly. Initially this is because I thought Grotus had a white beard, but looking at people's opinions online, it's more likely that his white beard is in reality a white collar that regular X-Nauts also have. Regardless, in his dialogue, he goes gak and whatever, so Grotus likely has chronic coughs, which is a common sign of age. At the very end of the game, Grotus is the one who summons the Shadow Queen and uses Peach as the Queen's vessel. Grotus does all of this because he thinks the Shadow Queen is supposed to obey him, but instead she effortlessly destroys Grotus. And I bet Beldum knew this is exactly what would happen, so just let Grotus do the dirty work and summon the Shadow Queen for her. In the post game you can find Grotus, but only his head remains. His body was completely destroyed. Which is strange because the Shadow Queen blasts Grotus twice, the first time destroying his body, the second time destroying his head, so it's unexplained how he survived this. By the way, I was initially going to count the Shadow Queen as well, but she doesn't seem to possess any clear elderly characteristics like Beldum. Sure, the Shadow Queen is 1000 years old, but so are Vivian and Marilyn, who clearly don't look like elders either. Let's briefly talk about Mayor Kroop now. Here's the Mayor Petalburg. This Petalburg is different to Petalburg City in the Gen 3 Pokemon games. Mayor Kroop has poor vision and difficulties with hearing, so mistakes Mario as Murphy. Likewise, the Puny Elder is the Puny tribe's leader and also has some bad hearing, so refers to Mario as Marty-O. To end this trifecta, we got Mayor Do, the mayor of Twilight Town. And just guess what he refers to Mario as, it's just Mario. Next up, Chet Ripper, a character who was in the first Paper Mario game but had a completely different design, one that we cannot quite confirm is elderly. This is the guy responsible for allowing you to alter your stats, so you can pay him some coins to increase your FP by 5 at the cost of lowering HP by 5 for example. This is also the way to get Mario in danger mode by lowering his HP till his max is only 5. Then there's the Far Outpost Mayor, who is a Bob-omb that tells you to seek Gold Bob and General White to gain permission to be launched by the cannon called Big Bob, which shoots Mario and friends to the moon where the X-Naut Fortress is located at. Just to clarify, Gold Bob and General White are not elderly due to not having great stashes. Likewise, I'm not going to include Don Pianta as well, cause he's probably just middle age. Although I was going to include him considering his daughter Francesca is a fully grown adult, and is engaged to Frankie, who happens to be Don Pianta's most trusted henchman. Plus, Don Pianta does end up retiring. However, comparing him to all the other elders I talked about, he does seem younger. Next is the manager of the fresh juice shop in Glitzville, Podler, who looks like the doppelganger of Podley, the owner of the soda bar in Rogueport, who serves Chocola Cola. It's also a cool hint that a Beanish character, who are the main residents of Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, serve Chocola Cola, a beverage first appearing in that game. Podley also tells Mario about why Admiral Bobbery refused to ever sail again due to the misery of his wife's death when he was out at sea. Podley gives Mario a letter of Bobbery's final words to his wife. Mario gives this to Bobbery, which motivates him to sail again. Admiral Bobbery is of course a very important character which we gotta include, since he eventually joins Mario's party, becoming one of his partners. Bobbery almost dies in the jungle by the way, after being bullied by some embers, and requests a final bottle of Chocola Cola before he passes. After handing over the Chocola Cola, Bobbery blacks out. He's just asleep, don't worry. It's giving me some Mayor Penguin flashbacks, only difference is that we can wake up Bobbery straight after whacking him with a hammer. Okay, before we move on to our final character for this game, I want to talk about Old Man Scoo, a character so legendary that we have never seen what he looks like. But based off the fact that the birth name his parents gave him was Old Man, I'm guessing Scoo is quite elderly. Or was, because he was gobbled up by Hooktail. The Mario fandom wiki states it is strongly hinted that he did not survive. Lastly, Professor Frankly. I just want to move on to the next game, guys. Please! He is Goombella's and he was Colorado's teacher as well? Professor Frankly was a teacher at the University of Goom. Every time you get a new crystal star and flex it in front of the 1,000-year door, we cut to a heated discussion with Frankly studying out this magical map you have, which displays the location of the next crystal star. Okay, Super Paper Mario time! This will be the last Paper Mario game we have to discuss, since no elderly characters are in Sticker Star, Color Splash, nor Origami King. Gee, I wonder why. In Chapter 1-1, we meet Bestovius, also known as the Flip Wizard. He is the one who grants, or should I say bestows, Mario the ability to switch between 2D and 3D, which is the game's main selling point. We then meet Bestovius' cousin, Old Man Watchit, in the following Chapter 1-2, who is the mayor of Yoldtown, and evident by his name, loves to yell, "Watch it!" He has a grandson named Bozo. Both Watchit and Bestovius are descendants of the tribe of Ancients. A group of these ancient sages created the Light Prognosticus, which portrays the future in an optimistic manner to counteract the bleak future prophesied in the Dark Prognosticus. The Light Prognosticus, just to clarify, does not prophesy the events that will happen in the future, but rather tries to stop the events that the Dark Prognosticus prophesizes. Malumina, who had also appeared in Paper Mario but looked completely different there, and Merlu are both credited to have written the Light Prognosticus, while the author of the Dark Prognosticus remains unknown. Along with these two, Merlimbus and Merlite form what's known as the Four Sages, and we'll be counting all four of them to our elderly list. Sure, someone like Merlu does not look elderly, but these characters were alive 1500 years ago and likely died at an old age. They aren't like the Shadow Queen who was stuck in limbo for 1,000 years only to be revived. No, these guys are ordinary, albeit very intelligent individuals who have passed away long ago. Malumina also is the only one of these four sages who we do meet, that is in spirit form at the end of Chapter 1. Beside Bestovius, Old Man Watchit, and technically Bozo, other descendants of the tribe of Ancients include Merlin, Merly, and Melovely. Out of these, Merlin is the elder of the bunch, who we had already counted when talking about the first Paper Mario game. He was also in the 1,000-year door, yet just played a smaller role which didn't impact the plot or anything. Merlin lives in Flipside, the game's main hub area, while his counterpart Nolrim lives in Flopside, another hub area you later gain access to. Basically, Flopside is just an anti-Flipside, with a lot of the same characters just with different names and color palettes. Despite Nolrim helping us in our adventures, his views align closer with the Dark Prognosticus and sees things through a pessimistic lens. But hey, you can have your own opinions as long as you're still helping Mari and the gang save the world. Nolrim is one of the two descendants of the Tribe of Darkness who oppose the beliefs of the Tribe of Ancients. The other descendant of the Tribe of Darkness, who we'll also include as elderly, is the game's main antagonist, Count Bleck, who used to be called Lord Blumiere before becoming so cold-hearted in nature. Count Bleck is the reason why Peach and Bowser were getting married at the start of the game, and he did do this to open up a void which has the power to eventually destroy all dimensions throughout the world. Then Bleck intended to replace the destroyed world with his vision of a perfect world. He does all of this because he's salty that his father was pissed at him for being in love with a human named Tiffany. So Blumiere ultimately proposed to Tiffany and the two were gonna get married, but before this Blumiere's father abducted and banished Tiffany from the dimension, wiped her memory and cursed her to wander through worlds until the day she died. Blumiere scoured across various dimensions to find Tiffany but was unsuccessful and thus suffers an existential crisis, thinking there's no point of life without her. This motivates him to steal the Dark Prognosticus, using it to destroy his dimension and all others. Tiffany had actually been found by Merlin, but on the brink of death, Merlin turned Tiffany into a pixel to save her life. And this pixel happens to be the Tippy, the one who tags along with you throughout the entire game, acting more like an ally similar to Olivia in the Origami King. And then all the other pixels in the game act like partners like in the first two Paper Mario games, since you can only have one out at a time. Also, despite the pixels being locked in a chest for 1500 years by the Tribe of Ancients, I'm not counting them as elderly because it seems these pixels don't age over time. This also means in her current state I will not be including Tippy either. And long story short, Tippy and Bleck do get married at the end, where their love saves the world by destroying the Chaos Heart. It is unknown where they disappeared to afterward, but they are living happily ever after, and that's what matters. And before you say anything, no, I will not be including Dementia. Based on various websites, the general consensus is that Dementia is 3,000 years old, at the very least, although the Mario Wiki never states Dementia's age. It is even theorized that the unknown rider of the Dark Prognosticus could in fact be Dementia, and he might be related to the magician responsible for creating the pixels, which led to an entire pixel uprising that the ancients had to deal with. Anyways, for someone who has lived for 3,000 years, probably even more, I'm assuming Dementia doesn't age at all, so he is an elderly. Alright, enough mumbo jumbo, let's rapid fire through the rest. We got the three hags, Hagra, Hyther, and Hagnus in the Underway Road. The big samurai with the white mustache, who is the most powerful samurai of them all. Blappy, a character confirmed to be 72 years old. Gladys, a 78-year-old woman who is married to the renowned maker of blue stuff, Walter, who is around 80 years old. Apparently Walter just loves to eat food. So maybe this is Walt Jr. in the future, because you know just how much he loves breakfast. Gertrude and Harold are the Flopside counterparts to these characters, the two who have been married for 60 years. How lovely. Another lovely couple is King Granby, King of the Over There, and Queen Jadis, Queen of the Underway. Granby is likely based on Zeus while Jadis is based on Hades, and the two have a child, Loveby, who accompanies you throughout Chapter 7. Finally, instead of just having Tasty and Zesty, we technically got both of them in the form of Saffron and Dillis, the former being very kind and the latter being not so kind. Saffron can only cook using one ingredient while Dillis cooks using 2 ingredients. Now, Mario and Luigi time. Kicking it off with Superstar Saga, we got the Hammerhead Bros, the highly skilled blacksmiths who forge Mario and Luigi's hammers, and later in the game upgrade these hammers into Super Hammers, and then even later, Ultra Hammers. Another pair of brothers who give off these Mario and Luigi vibes are Cork and Cask, the owners of the Chateau de Chucklehuck, who teach Mario and Luigi the Mini Mario and Luigi dunk techniques. The Prospector, or the minecart owner, is the dude who lets you play the minecart minigame. The Mario Kart Wii fandom also likes to recognize that the minecart owner does exist. Chuckleroot is a large tree that guards another tree, being the mother Chuckalola. Chuckleroot has a granddaughter. In the remake, his design looks completely different, and honestly, it's not as cool looking because the original one was more goofy and hence much more cooler. Anyways, going into the mother Chuckalola tree is where we find Bubbles, who was the founder of the Chuckola Cola Inc. and is the distributor of Chuckola Cola. Bubbles has spent the last millennium telling jokes to the Chuckola Reserve so that it becomes the greatest soda of all time, i.e. the soda becomes alive and turns into the Chuckolator, which Mario and Luigi beat the crap out of. Next up, Hermie III, who wears a shell decorated like a Christmas tree, and we also get to beat the crap out of him as well, so we can claim the Beanstar sitting on top of his shell. After getting a nice whooping, Hermie reluctantly gives the Beanstar and the locals around him apologize for his attempt to beat us up. When we first encounter Hermie, he also thinks Mario is Santa Claus. Fava, aka Old Bean, is an architect who designed the Yoshi Theater. He loves Yoshis of course and tells Mario and Luigi the location of bean fruits, which are fed to Yoshis so they can poop out neon eggs. Lady Lima is a Bean Bean Kingdom's goodwill ambassador and advisor of Queen Bean. Or in other words, she fills in the role of Toadsworth which the Bean Bean Kingdom desperately needs. And even the Mushroom Kingdom needs at this point. Like, come on, someone has to find Toadsworth's body eventually. Lady Lima also happens to be old friends with Toadsworth. Finally, Cackletta, the main antagonist of this game. This always felt weird to me since you defeat her back in Woohoo University, which is like less than halfway through the game. But of course, Cackletta's right hand man, Fawful, who is very beloved amongst Mario and Luigi fans, like me, transfers Cackletta's soul into an unconscious Bowser, turning him into Bowletta. Which, poor Bowser, he already suffered an identity crisis from being Rookie, and just as he comes back to his senses, poof, Cackletta turns him into Bowletta. And at the end of the game, we do get to bash Bowletta, only to get sucked up inside of her, needing to fight against Cackletta's soul. Cackletta does all her evil schemes because she wants to use the power of the Beanstar, which can grant any wish she desires. But to awake the Beanstar, Cackletta requires Peach's voice, which she steals at the start of the game, until we later realize this Peach was Bird in disguise, which is why the Beanstar got so pissed hearing the voice of the Peach bots back in Woohoo University. When in Bowletta form, Cackletta does end up just kidnapping Peach, who we actually saved before the last area of the game. But you know, we gotta save the Bean Bean Castle Town too, because Bowletta's pissed so destroys the entire place. Alright, on to the most underrated Mario game ever, Mario and Luigi Partners in Time. We have actually already talked about a good chunk of elders in this game already, specifically Grandma Red and Grandma Green, as well as how significant of a role Toadsworth and Gadd both play. For Toadsworth, that being both his present and past self, but unfortunately only his present self is elderly. We do end up meeting Gadd's past self as well, yet he plays a minor role in this game. Both Toadsworth and Gadd did appear in Superstar Saga, yet their roles in this game are far more significant. Also, there is the, spoilers, twist final boss, Elder Princess Shroob. I don't know why I'm saying spoilers when I've been literally spoiling everything with no warning up to this point. But anyways, Elder in Princess Shroob is just referring to the fact that she is the older sister of the Princess Shroobs, not the fact that she is a Shroob that is elderly. Same goes for the Elder Shrooboid. So the only characters left to mention is Shroobsworth, an enemy in the final area of the game, Shroob's Castle, who carries an intern Shroob, in the same vein to how Mario and Luigi carry the babies. The only thing creepy about this is that the name implies that intern Shroob is not related to their Shroobsworth in any sense. They are just assistants being forced to piggyback on top of their Shroobsworth at all times during working hours. And poor Shroobsworth as well, the amount of back pain he must get from this is quite frankly intolerable. We also have the Holly Jolly Mayor. This was the guy I put in my video thumbnail, but made him look abnormally large to fill in an awkward gap on the left hand side. Like Smithy, the Holly Jolly Mayor looks like Santa, and like Grandma Red and Grandma Green, he's a sole survivor of his town. Unfortunately, that didn't last very long, as after we rescue him from being stuck in a chimney, Shroobs come to abduct him, hence why the Mario Wiki fandom assumes his status is dead. It also assumes his gender is male. Let's move on to Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. In my script, I somehow mistyped my favorite game ever as Mario and Luigi Bowser's in Time. Okay pal, that's one too many Pepsis for you. For such an amazing game, there unfortunately seems to be only one elderly character, that being Cuzzle, and he does love puzzles as his name implies. Cuzzle also mistakes Iggy Koopa as his long-lost grandson Charlie. Chakron was a character I did consider to add since he has been meditating for 1000 years. Yet, he has been frozen in place for all this time, so my headcanon is that this halted his aging, similar to how the pixels don't seem to age in Super Paper Mario. There's also Yik, who appears as a ghost, but he just had to have colored hair, so I won't count him. Progressing on to Mario & Luigi Dream Team, we got the Elder of the Pillars, Eldream, who the bros rescue in Mushrise Park. Eldream allows us to gain access to Dreams Deep, where we find Bowser and Tasma. He also keeps track of how many pillars you've rescued throughout your adventure, where if you happen to free all pillars, he summons a Z-Keeper, granting you the ability to use a very powerful Z-Egg Bros attack. Dr. Snoozemore loves to snooze, and he studies the science of sleep on Pillar Island. He also happens to own Pillar Island. Very impressive. Another impressive character is the Mole Hunt Old Man, who may not own an island, but he does own the Mole Hunt minigame. I would have not included this legendary individual if it wasn't for him being titled as an old man, considering he doesn't seem to be elderly at first, unless the spots on his shell represent how people get age spots. Finally, we have the 6 Pillar Masters located in Somnom Woods. I could have included in Tasma, but there's no real evidence supporting him being elderly. Also, Kylie Cooper is here, who was a pretty important character when we met her in the past version of Partners in Time, but considering she might have been in her 20s then, when Mario and Luigi were babies, and Mario is probably 24 to 25 years old, it's been about 20 years since we last saw her, therefore she's probably in her 40s. Obviously, no elderly characters in Mario & Luigi Paper Jam, so time for Brothership. First, there's the 18 Grampy Turnips you encountered throughout the game. In the case of the Grampy Turnips and the Pillar Masters, where there are multiple of them, I'll only count them as a single elderly character to our total count. But note, for someone like the Hammerhead Bros, I'll count them as 2 elders since the characters are distinct enough from one another. Dr. Vulko is a physician who uses berries to cure people suffering from glom. Glom is a condition which makes one have the urge to be isolated from everyone else. Now, Wilma is the chief of Rumbler Island and the mother of Make It and Build It. She did have a husband who was never seen in the game, and Wilma also raised Gorumbler, who is the first boss you encounter. She is also seen to beat the crap out of Gorumbler to make him come back to his senses and stop damaging Rumbler Island. Like, bro thinks he's Wreck-It Ralph or something. And Wreck-It Ralph is based off DK, and Gorumbler is not equal to DK, hence the statement is false by mathematical induction. There's also the dude who screams out "My Wilma," which I had a screenshot on my Switch because I thought Luigi's facial expression looked funny, but I guess I can't count him since he lacks grey hair and there's no other proof that he's elderly. Wilma does have green hair, interesting, but I'm ultimately counting her because those tiny lines beside her mouth seem to represent wrinkles, like the one Zesty has. Also, there's Ryder O'Reilly. Up next, there's Bernadette's dad and Chilliam's dad, who is the chief of Scorching and Slip and Glide Island respectively. Chilliam and Bernadette, the reverse versions of Fireboy and Water Girl, also happen to get married. Next up, the Great Conductor, who is Snoutlet's mentor and the guardian of Concordia. Like the Z-Keeper, this guy is used in Mario's final bros attack called the Conductor Connector. And finally, Layden, the chief of Bulbfish Island. Layden's son, who also is his assistant, doesn't like Layden because he has too much work for him to do. His son wants to be chief instead and plans out a scheme where he steals these bulbfish eggs and shows that Layden is not doing anything to solve this issue. But of course, Mario and Luigi find out it was Layden's son, and Layden and his son do make amends. Bernadette and Chilliam are also the ones accused for stealing these eggs at one point, so are locked behind bars. The Mario Rabbids series seems to only have one elderly character, that being Rabbid Cranky. There is a boss fight against Phantom in Kingdom Battle, but like the Master Poet in Paper Mario, he wears a wig from the Enlightenment era, so he doesn't actually have grey hair. Also, the main antagonist of Sparks of Hope, Cursor, could be a Dementia Shadow Queen case, and is likely 1000 years old or even more. But these characters don't seem to age, and by the looks of it, Cursor doesn't look elderly, so I won't count it. Throughout these Mario RPG games, I bet there were so many random elderly NPCs I missed out on, because some elders aren't even given a name in the game. So unfortunately, I'm not able to discuss any of them since there's no information out there on the Mario wikis. Regardless, we are finally done with the RPG games, so it's Mario Party time. In the very first entry to this series, we have Puff, who resides in the minigame house. There's nothing more to say about Puff. In Mario Party 2, there's Steamer, who you can use to travel between train stations in Western Land. Steamer also appears in Mario Party 3, 4, 5 and DS, and since Western Land was in Jamboree, Steamer returns there as well. Also in Mario Party 2, Professor Fungi is found typing away the player records in the Options Lab. In Mario Party 3, we have the Millennium Star, who is born every 1000 years. So it's technically a newborn, but doesn't look like one. According to this one post I found, the Millennium Star looks 56 years old, and that's close enough to 65, which is the age that one is considered elderly. Okay, it really isn't that close, but I counted Zesty, who is 55 years old, so not including the 56-year-old Millennium Star would just be a bit strange. In Mario Party 4, there's only Steamer, who were mentioned already. Same goes for Mario Party 5, where L-Star, Steamer and King Bob-omb appear, but no one we haven't discussed yet. Again, no elders for Mario Party 6 and Mario Party Advance, but in Mario Party 7, there is the Koopa Master, who resides at the top of Pagoda Peak. Mario Party 8, no new elders again. Mario Party DS does include Koopa Craig, who we talked about at the very start of this video, and all the ND Cube Mario Parties developed afterward don't introduce any original characters, and hence that means no new elders. Although we won't be discussing Wario or DK games since Mario doesn't really appear in them aside from a few cameos, the Luigi Mansion games do have enough Mario that I might as well discuss them. And that's really just an excuse because the portrait ghosts in the first game do actually have given ages, which makes my life easier, as I don't have to awkwardly make assumptions on the character's age. Keep in mind, even if a character should be over 65 to be an elder, I'll still include a portrait ghost if they're even in their late 50s, as if their age was unknown, I would have counted them like I've certainly done with so many characters already. Also, I gotta point out the purple color scheme of the Luigi Mansion's fandom wiki looks very cool and very spooky. Anyways, Shiva is a 72-year-old butler. His biography is as follows. He wanders the house, endlessly searching for his master's will. He hopes he is included in it. I hope so too. After all the work Shiva has done for his master, it's the least he could do. Nana is a 76-year-old scarf knitting granny, whose heart can be exposed if Luigi strikes Nana with the same yarn balls she uses to knit her scarf. Vincent van Gogh, the starving artist, is 59 years old. Only his English name is a parody of Vincent van Gogh, so his unlocalized name is not based off the painter. And I will not be including Madame Clairvoyant, who's 52 years old, which is a bit too far from 65. By the way, the imaginary cutoff is anyone younger than Zesty. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon has no elders to discuss. Luigi's Mansion 3 has the Amadeus Wolfgeist, and we're back to characters not having a known age again. Wolfgeist is on one of the special floors where it's basically just a boss fight. He's so good at playing the piano that it grants him psychic abilities to throw chairs at Luigi. Once Luigi aggravates Wolfgeist enough, he possesses the piano, turning into the very thing which made us piss our pants back in Super Mario 64. Dr. Potter is another boss we face, who uses one of Carnivine's siblings to attack Luigi. And finally, Clem, a mechanic that lurks in the boiler works and floods the whole place to make our lives harder. I guess it doesn't matter, the rubber duck vs rubber swan showdown you have with Clem at the end is amazing. Now, looking at the other Mario franchises, they don't really introduce any new elderly characters which I haven't mentioned already. However, there are still a few out there, and one of these is gonna hurt a lot, even more than King Bob-omb, because King Bob-omb was just in Mario Kart Tour, so not many people got the chance to even play as him, and getting a specific character in that game is very tedious as well. But this character was in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and they were planned to be Mario Kart 64 but ultimately were scrapped. And that is none other than Bowser's most trusted advisor, Kamek, the one who took care of him as a baby and is the main antagonist throughout the Yoshi's Island series. This isn't even a King Bob-omb scenario where I'm on the fence as to whether he is elderly or not. For Kamek, the Mario Wiki states Kamek is an old yet powerful Magic Koopa, and he's depicted as elderly in the Mario movie through his hunched over back posture. Also, it may just be me, but when I was a kid I always thought Kamek was a she. Maybe that's because of Kammy Koopa, who was Paper Mario's equivalent to Kamek in the first two games. Or maybe it's because Kamek loves to dress up as Princess Peach, but Luigi has seen to do that as well. Also, just to clarify, Magic Koopas are a species like Goombas, and Kamek is the name of one Magic Koopa who was Bowser's assistant and raised him as a child. So I'm not saying all Magic Koopas are elderly, only Kamek is, and Kammy as well. Anyways, moving on to the Mad Science-Stein from Dr. Mario 64. I bet some of you thought I wouldn't mention him, but thankfully the playable roster of Dr. Mario 64 was blessed with the bubbling characters found across Wario Land 3. Therefore, despite being a Wario character, and even before that a character from a Japanese exclusive Game Boy game which translates to the frog for whom the bell tolls, the Mad Science-Stein has been in a Mario game, so deserves to be acknowledged in this video. In Mario's Time Machine, we have Bowser's mother, who I used as a punchline joke in one of my other videos. And no, Albert Einstein and Henry Ford do not count just because they were in Mario's Time Machine, and so does all the other important historical figures in that game, because that's just silly. Bowser's mother also happens to appear in the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, and something tells me that one of these isn't actually Bowser's biological mother, although the Super Show one correlates to Bowser's design back when he was called King Koopa. Let's talk about Linda now from Mario Tennis Power Tour. Actually, no, let's not. Other than Grammy and Grampy, who we talked about at the very start of this video, Mario Golf Advance Tour also has Elf. Elf was in the Game Boy Color Mario Golf as well, but was called the Golf Guru. We're finished talking about the video games. Hooray! But as a bonus, how about the movies and shows? The live-action 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie has no elders. However, the Illumination film introduces two, the unidentified news anchor and the grandfather of Mario and Luigi. Mama and Papa Mario seem to be middle-aged. The news anchor might be as well, but you know, he does have more grey hair than Mama Mario. And despite Toadsworth getting replaced by the Toad General, early concept art does showcase Toadsworth was initially planned to be here. Would have been so cool seeing him and Cranky Kong interact. Now, time for the
Super Mario Brothers Super Show!
Kicking it off with the mushroom space colonist Obi-Wan Toady, who says the very inspirational quote,
"Remember, may the pasta be with you."
Obi-Wan Toady is a parody of Obi-Wan Kenobi, just like another character called Obi-Wan Cannoli in the live action segment of the show. The Super Show also had Albert Einstein and Santa Claus, but because these weren't turned into Mario character variants like Obi-Wan Toady, we shall not include them. It does sound pretty sad that Albert Einstein got rejected in Mario's Time Machine and now the Super Show, but the Mad Science-Stein seems to be inspired by him, so he gets one win at least. Aunt Luigina is Mario and Luigi's aunt, played by the same actor who plays as Luigi. Similarly, Mamma Mia Mario is played by the same actor who plays as Mario. Moving on, Dr. Sheldon is a mysterious, powerful witch doctor that lives in the Amazon jungle. I actually remember this episode solely because of the Koopa Strength itching powder that caused Mario, Luigi and Toad to uncontrollably itch themselves. Dr. Teagarden is one of the best scientists in the world, and invented the Super Sushi, which makes you stronger and bigger if you eat it. This sushi is what turns King Koopa into Koopzilla. Grandma Toadstool is a character I hinted at back when we were talking about Mario RPG. Grandma Toadstool and another elderly character called Pine appear in an episode titled Little Red Riding Princess. And between this, Obi-Wan Toady, and the many alter egos of King Koopa, you can tell this show loves to construct their plot points based on pop culture references. Next is Liz, a Brooklyn resident who believes she is the Queen of England. Since the episode aired on 1989 and Queen Elizabeth II was born in 1926, she was about 63 years old, which is close enough to 65. So Liz is trying to be 63 years old as well, and despite not having grey hair, she does have facial wrinkles. Mayor Fettuccini is the mayor of Pastaland. Mervyn the magician is the protector of Cramelot Kingdom and is a parody of Merlin from the Legend of King Arthur, and Cramelot is a parody of Camelot. Waldo the Wizard appears in an episode titled Princess I Shrunk the Mario Brothers, and I don't recall a wizard being in Honey I Shrunk the Kids. We have already mentioned Bowser's mother from earlier, so all that's left is the old psychic lady with the evil eye who reads fortunes and knows everything before it happens. The next show is Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3. We first have Emperor Ed, who is the ruler of Skyland, so this is the show's adaptation of the King of Skyland from the games. Therefore, we've already counted Emperor Ed before. We just didn't call him Emperor Ed. The Wizard King of the West is not a villain despite his name being a parody of the Wizard of Oz's main antagonist, the Wicked Witch of the West. King Mackerel is a ruler of Metropolis. The submarine captain is a French naval officer. And before the mayor of New Donk City, we had the mayor of New York City. And finally, Mr. President and Mrs. President, who was based off the President of the United States at the time the show was released, this being George H.W. Bush and his wife Barbara Bush. Also, shoutouts to Crime Wave Clyde, who has been sentenced to jail for 12,423 years.
You guys are driving me crazy!
And this Toad Doctor, who both seem to be middle-aged rather than elderly. In the Super Mario World TV series, no elderly characters appear, which means we are finally done! Yay! Assuming I can count, there are 152 elders in total across the entire Mario universe. Going into this video, I was expecting a number much lower, perhaps about 40 elders, but once we dug deep into this rabbit hole of characters, there was a lot to go through. And that's because we likely don't think about many of these characters at first when discussing about the Mario franchise. But I'm hoping today we have shed light on the amazingness of the various elders throughout Mario's adventures. If there were any elders I missed out on, which I undoubtedly must have and deeply apologize for, please let me know. And if there were any characters I included which you believe are not elderly, feel free to share your thoughts as well. And let me know who your favorite elderly Mario character is in the comments down below. Is it Toadsworth, is it Professor Frankly, or is it Bernadette's dad? Since I love trains, my personal favorite is Steamer. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video and thank you so much for sticking around until the end. Goodbye.